in US. So today I will introduce some of the most recent discoveries we have found in Sanxingdui. Before we start, focus on, Before we start to focus on Sanxingdui site and Sanxingdui civilization, perhaps we need to know the general background of the early to mid Bronze Age civilization in China. If we look at the relics, the artifacts, and also the sites we found in eastern part of China, we can group or categorize these things into several cultural spheres. For example, one of the most important cultural sphere we refer as is the Central Plain area. This is also the central part of the later Chinese empires. But in the places around, in the regions around the Central Plain, we also have several important areas that we have found significant Bronze Age civilizations. For example, to the north, we have the so-called Northern Steppe zones, which was characterized by the bronze weapons especially decorated with the animal heads. And to the northwest, it's area today mainly located in the so-called Ganqing corridor. And in these areas, the bronze pieces are mainly the small weapons and some mirrors and even the tiny ornament. And the other important area for Bronze Age civilization around this period is the so-called Middle Yangtze River area, like the Jiangxi and Hubei, Hunan province in China. And in these areas, they found very large bronze pieces. Some of them are similar to those found from the Central Plains, but some of them have very distinctive local styles. So for today, we will focus on the southwestern corner of this map, the Sichuan Basin. If we look at the Chinese geography, the Sichuan Basin is a very special place because looks like this area has surrounded by a lot of geographic barriers. To the north, it's the Qinling Mountain, which have average altitude of almost like 2,000 to 3,000 meters. And to the west, if you like this picture, it's the eastern edge of the Tibetan Plateau. Sometimes, if you have a good day in Chengdu, the capital city of the Sichuan province, you can even see these snowbirds from the city. So this will also be a very high geographic barriers to the west of the Sichuan Basin. To the east, it's also very famous Three Gorges. Although there was a river, the Yangtze River goes through these valleys. But for most of the areas, it is surrounded by the mountain. And to the south, it's a series of lower mountains, but still very thick mountains like the Wumeng, Dalou. These mountains have altitude around 1,500 to 2,100 on average. So all these mountains make up a systematic and difficult geographic barriers for people who living inside of the Sichuan Basin to go outside, and also make barriers for people who live outside to go into the basin. At present, so what's the topic of our today is about so-called Sichuan, this Shu state. Because in some later historical records, it said that there used to be a state called Shu before the Qin Empire's conquest of this region. But most of these historical records are not in a very clear way to say it, because some reliable historical records mentioned about the history of this area only occurs after the warring state period, especially when the Shu state, this ancient state, have some reliable military and diplomatic contact with its northern and eastern neighbor, the Qin and its Shu state, a true state. So, for example, in Shiji or some Huayang Guozhi, these ancient records in the Han Dynasty, they said they have some warfares between Qin and the Shu people about they are fighting for the control of the Hanzhong Basin, and also there is some records about the warfare and the diplomatic relationship between Shu, the state in the Sichuan Basin, and the Chu state in the eastern Hubei province. So all these records occurred only after about 500 BC. So if we want to know the history and who were living here, living in the Sichuan Basin before that year, it's difficult to find these evidence from the historical records. So what we should do, of course, here, just as I am, I'm an archaeologist, so we have to depend on the findings from archaeological site. At present, we have some evidence from the Neolithic site to know where maybe the earliest resident of the Sichuan Basin come from, where they come from. At present, we have two primary directions for from where these people come from. One is the Middle Yangtze River, because there are some sites have been found in Chongqing now, the eastern part of the Sichuan Basin. And these sites, some of these sites can be dated back to about 5,000 to 6,000 BC, and they all belong to the Neolithic period. These sites are much earlier than Sanxingdui period, and the artifacts and artifacts from these sites show some kind of characteristic similar to the things found in the eastern part of this region from Hubei province. So perhaps there is some kind of long-term immigration from Hubei province, from the eastern part of the Three Gorge. They go through the valley and get into the Sichuan Basin. And the other important direction is from the northwest highland, and some people go there through the valleys along the edge of the Tibetan Plateau, eastern edge of the Tibetan Plateau. And these people may come from the Gansu province in today, yeah, like this one. Some of them, we think they like at least one group or several groups of them goes through the Min River Valley, and they gradually move southward. And then around the 3000 BC, they finally get into the Sichuan Basin, especially the Chengdu Plain. The Chengdu Plain, as we know, is the most fertile land and flat land in the entire Sichuan Basin, because some part of the basin is a hilly area. It's not very easy for agriculture. Only the Chengdu Plain has the best condition for the agricultural activities. After these people, for example, northwestern people, they get into the Sichuan Basin, the center of the Sichuan Basin, we start to see progress of social complexity. Here, I just show several important sites to show the development of the chronological development of the culture here. So one of the earliest settlements that appeared in Sichuan Basin, especially in Chengdu Plain, is the Baodun site, from this site we can see a very practical and actual rise of complex society. We can see the emerge of social hierarchy, and we can see the start construction of large buildings. And then the center of the cultural center or population center of the Chengdu Plain gradually moved towards the north. And this is the center of our focus of our topic today, the Sanxingdui site. This is also the heyday of what we call the so-called theocratic state in Sichuan Basin. And after the Sanxingdui site, the center move again towards the southward, go to the modern Chengdu city. We find a site called Jinsha. That is the late period of the Shu state. Sometimes we can see the Shu state is in decline at this period. Yeah, this is some pictures we can see from the Baodun culture, the Baodun site, also the Baodun culture. From this site, people living in Sichuan Basin, living in Chengdu Plain, start to build some early cities. For example, this map shows how the Baodun city looks like. It has two encirclements, and this is the inner city, and this is the outer city. And within the inner city, for example, like this one, this is the remnant of the inner city wall. Some of the wall is still stand above the ground. So if you can go to this site, you can still see them on the ground. And within the inner city of the Baodun city, we can see some very large buildings that haven't been seen before the Baoduan culture. For example, like this one. This one has a very complex grid of columns. So that means some kind of very large building complex has been built here. And this is the cobalt base, for example, like here. So that means the columns of these buildings should be very big. And so this will be a very big building. And definitely this building cannot be a household for a small family. It must be used as some ceremonial or ritual functions. And we also find some tombs from the Baodun site. And these tombs shows, although they do not have too many funeral goods, but there are still some special ones. For example, like this one. There was ivory scepters have been found from one of the tomb. So that tomb, the dead in that tomb sometimes have been referred as a leader, one of the leader of this site. And the usage of scepter also, it looks like the usage of ivory, especially the elephant tusk, has started from the Baoduan culture. And this make up a very important cultural traditions in Sichuan Basin, because from Baoduan culture, then to Sanxingdui culture, and then in Jinsha, we can see a long tradition of use of, especially use a large amount of elephant tusk in all kinds of ritual activities. And Baodun city is not the only one ancient city around the late Paleolithic period, around 3000 BC to around 2500 BC to around 17 BC at that time. At least there have been 6 different ancient cities belongs to the Baodun period. Around this period have been found at that time. So that sometimes scholars are saying that the rulers of each city are competing with each other, because most of the city size looks very similar. There is no others, no one single city exceeded others very much. So this is quite different from what we look like the landscape, especially the political landscape at Sanxingdui period. Now we go to Sanxingdui, the most important and the most prosperous archaeological culture in the entire southwestern China during the Bronze Age. The Sanxingdui culture covers a very large area of the Sichuan Basin, almost covering the entire western part of the Sichuan Basin. Sometimes scholars also mention that some of the artifacts from the eastern part of the Sichuan Basin, especially in the Three Gorge areas, can also be characterized as a subcategory of Sanxingdui culture. The Sanxingdui culture has a very large center city called Sanxingdui site. That's from which we name this culture, which archaeological culture. And the Sanxingdui culture shows a very strong presence of theocratic authorities in all kinds of artifacts, because we can see there was no obvious expressions of one single person like the king or the emperor in this kingdom. So we think like it's more like a collective leadership in this kingdom or this state. And it also has characterized, Sanxingdui culture also characterized by a high level of manufacture of bronze, gold, jade, and elephant tusk. They all made very large and significant artifacts. And especially in terms of their artistic style, they have developed a very strong, distinctive, strong local style in all kinds of artifacts. The first discovery of Sanxingdui site related to one of American scholar whose name is David Graham. He was used to be the director of the Museum of Antiquities at the Huaxi University, now the Sichuan University. And why he go there, because around 1920s, a local family, this is the father and this is son, local family called named Yan Daocheng, found some jade from their backyard, and this news went to the society, and they attract a lot of attentions. Some attentions from dealers and some attentions from scholars. And after David Graham heard this news, he decided to make an archaeological exploration there. And in around 1934, he conducted the first scientific archaeological excavation in southwest China. This is also one of the earliest excavation, the modern archaeological excavation in China, because we know that the modern archaeology started in China around 1921. So this is just 10 years after the first excavation in North China. And this is also the first modern archaeological excavation in southwest China. At that time, he made some very important discovery there. He found a lot of jade from this trench. And some of the jade he found there are even stored in the museum in Sichuan University and the Sichuan Provincial Museum. Some of them have been exhibited in the museum now. And after that, the archaeology work continues for almost 1 century, even for today. And during these 90 years, we have already know the general the general layout of this city, how it looks like. And here I show you a map here. This is the general layout of this city, especially the city wall, how the city wall looks like. Now we know that this is Sanxingdui site is a very large ancient city during the Middle Bronze Age in China. And it consists of one larger city, this one, we can see a larger city around this area, and also 3 smaller war zones, or sometimes we call 3 inner cities inside. Here is one, and here is one, and this is another. And this city, according to its archaeological discoveries, we know a general chronological development about this city. It grows gradually from northwest towards the southeast. So some of the earliest things were found here into the northwest part of the city, and gradually more discoveries start to appear into the southeast part of the city. So we can see a gradual development of the city. And just look like the Baodun culture, Baodun city. And some of the city walls also standing above the ground. For example, this is a picture of the western wall of the Sanxingdui city. It's very thick. Maybe it's taller than what we see today. It must be taller, and perhaps due to the weathering or some later destruction, it is just a show like 5 to 4 meters high at present. For the entire Sanxingdui city, we have to admit that we still lack enough archaeological work over the entire Sanxingdui city, because most of the archaeological work during the last 90 years mainly focused on the northern part of the city and the sacrificial part of the city. And for example, the other one important area of the city is so-called the Cangbaobao inner city, the northwestern part of the city. And because we know that some of the earliest bronze pieces, like these two bronze plaques, was found from this part of the city. And it looks like also there was some kind of workshops, at least some clues of ancient workshops were located in this region. But maybe these works need to be done in the future. So that means what I said today may be changed, or at least my understanding or interpretation about Sanxingdui site may change in the future, because there are still much work needs to be done in the future. Just as I mentioned, to the north part, we have found to the north part of the city, like this city we call the Qingguanshan area, Qingguanshan locus. In this area, archaeologists have found a very large building complex. Most of us think that this building complex should be the ancient palatial area of the city. And these buildings, especially when you look at the size of them, they are very large. And if you look at detail, what we found there are some precious artifacts shows that the activities used to happen here, used to occur here, to be very high level. For example, very complete elephant tooth has been found here like this, just inside of around the building. And within and outside of the building, just around the building, we can also find like gold foil and turquoise and jade pieces, broken jade pieces. So that means perhaps some of the most high-level, high-ranked people are living or acting in these activities. But we do not know actually what this is a living house for them, a living palace for them, or this is some kind of temple or important ceremonial place for the people at Sanxingdui. Yeah. Beyond the palatial area to the north, to the Qingguanshan in the north, the other important discovery is the so-called sacrificial area of the Sanxingdui site. This is also the most important and the most attractive part of the Sanxingdui site. The two large pits was first excavated in 1986 in the southern part of the Sanxingdui city. If you look at the Sanxingdui city, it doesn't look the orientation of this city is not from north to south. The central axis of this city is from northeast to southwest. So perhaps they have their, I mean, the Sanxingdui people have their own method to do the orientation and to do the construction. And in 1986, in the summer of 1986, archaeologists occasionally found two large pits there. And this is the image of the pit number one. Sometimes we call it K1. We can see from this picture that there are many like jade pieces and and a few bronze pieces there. And there is also a gold thing here. This is one of the most important artifacts we found from the site. It's a gold scepter. It's a gold scepter, but just the gold skin of the scepter. We will talk about later. And this is pit number two. Pit number two is much larger and has a denser deposit of artifacts, especially in terms of bronze pieces. We can mainly divide the deposit of the deposit in pit number two into two layers. The first layer is a so-called elephant tusk layer. We can see here there are many, not too many compared with what we found recently. There are almost like 80 elephant tusks have been found from pit number two. And just below, after they remove these elephant tusks, we can see a large number of middle-sized and large-sized bronze items here. And some of them are the human heads, and some of the masks. And we also can see the root of the sacred tree and very large. We sometimes see the grand standing human here. Yeah, but most of them had been broken before they were thrown into the pits. And because of the condition at that time, the technical condition at that time, the excavation in 1986 conducted in a very quickly way. Most of these artifacts was removed and extracted from these pits within just 1 month. This is some of the pictures they are doing their work at that time. For example, you can see because there are lack of enough lifting equipment, so sometimes they have to choose female archaeologists to be naked foot, to use naked foot to directly step on these elephant tusks to do the cleaning work. And most of the lift work had to be done by human, just like this. And most of the artifacts from these two pits, especially from pit number one and pit number two, are the large bronze standing, include large bronze standing figures, masks, beast masks, and altars, sacred trees, sun-shaped vessels, and other containers, and also including a lot of small ornaments there. And if you look at detail of these artifacts excavated from the two pits, archaeologists have noted at that time had noticed that most of these artifacts appear to have been deliberately, intentionally burned and crushed before the burial. And some of them have been burned, deformed, and even been melted. So that means most of these artifacts had been broken before the burial. So this phenomenon raised two kind of explanation at that time. One group of scholars say that this could be some kind of result of sacrificial activities, because we know that people around the world, when they do sacrificial activities or religious activities, they burn things. So maybe after they burn some things in the ceremonial activities, and then after the ceremony, they bury these things within these pits. And another kind of explanation about so-called warfare explanation is that the animal of the Sanxingdui people came here and conquered this city, and they destroyed the temple of the Sanxingdui people and destroyed all these religious items and just burn them and bury them in these two pits. So this make a very long-term debate after the excavation in 1986. Now we have after we have the new clues, especially after we have the new excavations, I think perhaps this debate can be over because now we have enough evidence to show that this is kind of some sacrificial activities, not related to warfare from outside. After the excavation in 1986, this area became a park for tourism and do not have any archaeological work seen in the next 35 years. In 2018, the Sichuan Provincial Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology decided to start a new round of archaeological work in this area. And they remove all these tourism facilities in this area and start to dig several trench here, pilot trench here to see whether there are still pits leaving behind in this area. And unfortunately, just in the autumn of 2019, they found another 6 pits in this area. Some of the pits, like pit number 8, is just 3 meters away from what they found in 1986. And some of these pits are smaller than what we found in 1986, and some of them, at least 3 of them, are larger than the found in 1986. This is the general layout of this over the entire sacrificial area. Now we know, and these 2 dark red pits was K1. Here is K2, and these 2 pits was excavated in 1986. And just between them, we found 6 new ones. And you can see K3 here, K7, K8 is much larger. And there are also 3 smaller ones, K4, 5, and 6. Within these pits, we also found a lot of important artifacts, which we will see later. And And because we have learned enough lessons from the excavation in 1986, when they have limited conditions, especially technical conditions at that time, for the excavation in 75 years later, we have a lot of new technology and a new method and strategy to conduct our excavation. For example, this picture shows what our excavation looks like on site. This big one is the so-called protective shelters. And under these shelters, we built the fieldwork laboratories. Below each laboratory or within each laboratories, there is 1 pit. So we use 1 lab to cover 1 pit, or except this one covers 3 pits because these 3 pits just close to each other. So we just build 1 to cover these 3 pits. And these labs provide very good conditions for us to conduct the modern archaeological work, especially for sampling of ancient DNA or phytoliths and other kind of residues, especially pigment, from these pits. And the new excavation lasted from 2020 to October 2020 to the last November, and almost like 2 years. So within these 2 years, we have done a lot of work here, and these pictures show how our work looks like under these field laboratories. And this is the image when one of the largest bronze mosques was hosting out of the pit number 3. And this is the largest bronze mosque we ever know in China or in the entire world. And now our work hasn't finished. Although I'm sharing these new discoveries here, our work hasn't finished because after the excavation period, excavation steps, Now we have moved to the next step for the conservation and the restoration work. Most of the work is being done in the museum of in the Sanxingdui Museum, especially the restoration center of the Sanxingdui Museum. And here I just like to show how these artifacts deposited in these pits. So we will give you a general example of how we do the excavation, especially we use the example from pit number 8. This is the largest one. And for pit number 8, this is the surface of pit number 8. From east to west, this is almost like 5 meters, and it's like 4 meters in width. And when we do this work, we have experienced several several steps. So during the first step, we meet the so-called sealing fields in the pits. We can see these soils are very clean. There was not too many artifacts have been found from these fields. And we think that this layer was formed in a very short time period because they are very clean, but it was not have been intentionally rammed like the rammed earth to the north in North China. And after we removed the so-called sealing field, the sealing field almost like 80 centimeters in depth. And after we remove the sealing fields, we met the ash layer. The ash layer has a very different look compared with the sealing layer, because we can see it's very dark and contains a lot of charcoal things. Most of the charcoal things belongs to the charcoal bones of animal and charcoal plants. After we do the analysis on phytoliths and some sampling flotation, we know that most of these plants come from bamboo, and also a small part of them come from some wood. So perhaps they are using bamboo as a kind of fuel to do these burning activities. Because we see a lot of ash in this layer, and within the ash, there are also a large number of kind of artifacts, including bronze pieces, jade, and gold things. But most of the bronze artifacts found from the ash layer have been deliberately broken, because some of them we can see comes from very large artifacts, and they have been broken into very small fragments and then thrown or poured into the pits. But after we look at the wall of these pits, we think that the burning activities would not happen within these pits, because the wall was not heated to very high temperature. It still have a very yellow color and very soft. And so perhaps the Sanxingdui people are doing these burning activities, the actual sacrificial activities, somewhere else, but maybe not very far from here. And after that action, they just throw or pour these ashes into the pits and formed this ash layer. The thickness of the ash layer is just around 20 to 30 centimeters, but it contains one of the largest amount of artifacts. The number of artifacts from ash layer is even bigger than what we found from the real artifacts layer just below. And this is the close look of the ash layer. We can see a large number of small pieces of bronze things, and this is the jade ring here. And this is a schematic image of the representation of the distribution of gold items from the ash layer. So we can see there is a slope in the distribution of these gold things. That means the people perhaps, we guess that people perhaps mainly stand on the southern bank, on the southern edge of the pits, and they just pour these things from the south part of the pits towards the north part. So the southern part, the deposit in the southern part of the pit is higher than what we found in the north. And after we gradually remove the ash layer and extract the small artifacts there, we meet ivory, elephant tooth here. But in between, we found a so-called interval-less layer. It's this yellow part. So that means before people pour the ash into this pit, they first pour some kind of very clean earth, I mean these yellow soil into the pits, surround the edge of the pits. Most of these interval layers was in a circle way, and it's higher around the perimeter and low in the center. So that means this part of the ivory, this part of the elephant tooth was not covered by these layers. So some of the ash still contact with these elephant tooth, and because of this, some of the elephant tooth in this area has become black here, look like this. And after we remove the internal loss layer, and we see a lot of elephant tooth just below. Within the so-called tooth layer, there are almost like 397 elephant tooths were found, and over like 150 of them are longer than 15 centimeters. So we can see that most of them was thrown into the paste in a complete way. Some of them may be broken during this process, during the pouring or throwing into the paste, but most of them are still intact. Most of the ivories were placed in the paste in a whole piece. But although if we look at this picture, we think this elephant tooth was thrown into the paste in a haphazard way. But if we look at in another aspect, we can see that they were still generally on the same level. That means people have intentionally to place them on the same level. They were not concentrated in a very large pile of elephant tooth. So this is also shows the kind of activities of respect. And this is some of the pictures of how we do the extraction of elephant tooth from the paste. So first we need to bending these paste and then to use a medical planar bondage to reinforce these elephant tooth, because although you can see it's very large, but some of them or many of them have become very soft, and they need to be reinforced before the extraction. And sometimes we have to use additional plasters to do the supplementary reinforcement to make it stronger and stronger enough to be extracted. And because these elephant tooth has a long-term contact with the large brown pieces below, so some surface of them had become just like this, become green. But the original color of it should be here, looks like here, is white or just a little yellow. And gradually, we take almost like 8 months to extract all these elephant tooth. It took a very long time because for like one day, we only have enough ability to extract like 2 or 3 elephant tooth one day. And this work take almost 8 months. And gradually within the decreasing number of the elephant tooth in the paste, we gradually see these intact or complete brown species below. And to almost like the April and May of 2022, just last year, and we remove we extract all these elephant tooth and say the final things at the bottom of the page. So this is a layer contains a lot of bronze artifacts. So within this layer, there were only very few gold and jade things. Most of the jade and gold pieces were found from the ash layer. So that means when the people, Sanxingdui people do these activities, they have their own orders to throw things, to pour things into this paste. And this is the so-called artifact layer. Most of the bronze artifacts in the artifact layer are intact, although some of them have been broken. I think most of us think that they were caused by the mutual collision between during they were thrown into the paste. So This scenario is quite different from what we see in the ash pit, in the ash layer. Most of the brown pieces were deliberately broken into very small pieces. And we can also see that most of these artifacts in this image are so-called, we refer them as large and middle-sized pieces. Not only very few smaller or tiny ornaments have been found from this layer, because we found that most of these tiny ornaments were thrown into another pit, pit number 7. So that means when the Sanxingdui people start to throw all these things into the pits, they first sort of these things first, and then put the larger things into pit number 8 and put the smaller things into another pit. And in total, for example, from pit number 8, there were almost like 8,000 pieces or groups of artifacts had been extracted. Bronzewares consisted almost like 6,000. And according to our radiocarbon dating, the burial date, not the artifact, not the date of the artifacts, the burial date of pit number 8 just concentrated around 1,100 BC to around 1,000 BC. So this belongs to the so-called Late Shang period to early Western Zhou period. But because we do not find obvious bronze pieces with typical Western Zhou style, so we think that these things were buried during the Late Shang period. And we can have a quick look at of the other pits. For example, this is a picture of the pit number 7, another pit, and the deposit within the pit number 7 looks very similar to pit number 8. It also contains a very thick layer of elephant tusk, almost like 200 pieces, and below these elephant tusk, there are many small and tiny ornaments. So just like I said, perhaps people had sorted these things before they were thrown the bronze pieces into the pits, except this one, the only large bronze artifacts from pit number 7 is this one we will talk about later. It's a bronze grade. And this is pit number 3. Pit number 3 looks very similar to the findings in 1980s, pit number 2. So sometimes we can see that there are pairs in these pits. For example, pin number 7 and pin number 8 are a pair, and pin number 2 and pin number 3 are a pair. And within one pair, the deposit within these pairs are very similar. For example, most of the elephant tusk within pin number 2 and pin number 3 are around 80s and 80 or 70s, and pin number 7 and pin number 8 all have both have elephant tusk more than 200 pieces. And pin number 4 is very special. It has a lot of charcoal things at the bottom, and also have a large number of ceramic potteries there. But most of the potteries have been broken because of the press from above. And also from pin number 4, there was a very interesting statue we can see later. It's a statue of a man sitting on his knees and with his hand turned, just like this way. We will see what it looks like after the cleaning. And there are 2 different sacrificial pit number 5 and pit number 6. Within pit number 6, there was a wooden box, but that work hadn't been finished, so we do not know what can be found within that wooden box. And pin number 5, the excavation of pin number 5 is almost finished. It contains no bronze artifacts, but a lot of gold, ivory, and jade pieces. For example, these these yellow things are the gold items, the very round gold foil, and these white things are the jade pieces, small jade ornaments, and these black things are the charred elephant tooth pieces. Some of the elephant tooth pieces from pin number 5 have been carved with very fine decorative patterns on them. So maybe some of the elephant tooth has been made into some kind of artifacts, but we do not know the original shape of them because they have been burned and broken. So this is how these pits looks like. And now we move to the artifacts found from these pits. And first, we will focus on the bronze, the largest amount of artifacts from these pits. And if we look at the bronze artifacts from the ritual or the sacrificial pits from Sanxingdui, we can categorize them into two groups in terms of their artistic style. The first group is the so-called Central Plain or Middle Yangtze River style, or the exotic style. Because, for example, these style things mainly are the ritual vessels, ritual containers, like the zun and the lei vessels. These vessels are the so-called ritual containers. Because what we see is this is a Middle Yangtze River style, Central Plain style, because in the Middle Yangtze River region and in the Central Plain regions, these kind of containers, bronze containers, are very popular. A large number of these containers have been found in Yinxu, the capital city of Shang Dynasty, and also the Yangtze River, Middle Yangtze River Valley. So that means we guess that most of these things was imported from these areas into Sichuan Basin to Sanxingdui site. Because why they were not manufactured here? Because compared with the so-called local style bronzes, the number of them are still very small in Sanxingdui site. And the other, beyond these so-called exotic style bronzes, the other bronze pieces or bronze artifacts all belongs to the so-called local style. There are many different types. For example, the human mask, human figures, human heads, plant or animal formed artifacts, and also the so-called some small like the bell. This is some image of the bronze containers we found in Sanxingdui and also those found beyond Sanxing, beyond the Sichuan Basin. For example, these two vessels were found from Sanxingdui site in 1986. One of them is Zun. This is Lei. Anyway, they are all ritual containers. And this is the Zun from the capital city of Shang Dynasty in Henan province in the north. So we can see they are very similar. This is the one from Sanxingdui. They are very similar. And this is another piece, decorative dragon and tiger pattern on the surface. And this piece of artifacts was found from the Anhui province and now is exhibited in the National Museum in Beijing. It's the even the lower Yangtze River Valley. And this piece was from Sanxingdui sacrificial pit number 2. So we can see that they have almost the same kind of pattern, decorative patterns on it. And perhaps at that time we can know there has one of the network of exchange have been established within the Yangtze River, region. The upper Yangtze River Valley, the Sichuan Basin, can have some kind of material exchange with the people who are living in the lower or middle Yangtze River region. So this may be show a kind of long distance exchange. But if we compare it with the number of the so-called local style bronzes, these exotic bronze only consist of a very small part of them. This is the image of the artifact layer of pit number 8. So we look at. There are no more than 20 pieces of these exotic containers, bronze containers within the pits. All others are definitely the local style bronze. If we look at local style bronze, first we can see a kind of bronze masks. There are mainly two types of masks. One is we call it a common mask, and the other is a protruding the mask with protruding eyes. There are very few. There are only 3 or 4 pieces of these masks. The interesting thing is about his eyes and his nose. The eye protruding just outside of the eyeball, and it looks like there was a plant grow out of his nose here. Perhaps they have some special religious meaning, but the actual meaning, how to interpret these things, still has have a lot of debate. And the size of them can vary a lot. For example, the smallest one is this one, not this one, but this one. Yeah, you can see this one. This is the smallest bronze mask we have found in page number 8 or page number 8. And this is the largest one, just the image we see how it was hosted outside of page number 3. This comes from page number 3, and from the tip of his ear here to this tape, and it's almost like 1.35 meters. So it's very large, especially when you compare with human here. And so what's the real function of them is unknown, because people have raised a lot of hypotheses how these masks were used. For example, like this one can be wear by real human. It's almost like the size of them can fit the human face very well. But how about this one? It's too large, right? It's too large. So there is a hypothesis that people at Sanxingdui period, they build very large statues with wood or soil, and they just use this mask to decorate the surface of these large statues, because perhaps they gave these statues the real clothes, and so only the face part can expose to the audience. So they don't have to build a very large body part by using bronze. And the second type of local style bronze are these human heads. They are not masks, they are human heads. And most of these human heads are essentially the same in terms of their facial expression. But if you look at their hairstyle, there are a lot of difference. So for example, like this one has a small cap on top of the head. This is the back. And this one has a hairpin here, is a decoration. And if you look at this one, turn to back, you can see some kind of braid, or we say a ponytail here, and at the back of his head. And this one, it looks like this person wear some kind of turban here. And this kind of turban, the use of this kind of turban can still be found in modern China. This picture was taken in late 19th centuries. And even you go to the southwest part of China today, the local people, either the Han people or the other minorities, still use this kind of turbans in their daily life. And some of the masks were decorated with golden masks, and this mask was sticked and on the surface of the facial part. But the hair was not covered by these. The hair part was not covered by these golden mask. And the third local style bronze is the so-called full body size bronze, and they can show how the Sanxingdui people, at least maybe similar to their real looks like at that time, at least their clothes. For example, like this one, this is the largest human statues we ever found in China during the Bronze Age. It's called we rename it the Grand Bronze Standing Human, Standing Man. We can see he has a very special gesture here. He was holding something. This piece was found in 1986 from page number 2. After the excavation of page number 2, there has a debate for almost like 35 years till now. People are fighting for what he's holding in his hand. Some people say they are holding an elephant tooth because there are too many elephant tooths can be found from this place. And sometimes people say they were holding a scepter. And some people even say he was holding a column of a building. So this is the column of a large building, and this one just hold the column. And after the new excavation in these recent years, perhaps we have some new clues about what he is holding in his hand. This is the smaller statues we found from page number 8. And this guy, you can see that it looks very similar to this one. Yeah, they draw the same clothes. And this guy holds a scepter with a dragon head. And the body part of the scepter goes up there. It's broken, but we found the other part in page number 8. And this is a even smaller one, a smaller figure from page number 3. And he also holds a scepter here, but not a dragon head scepter, but a bird head scepter. and the body part of the scepter goes below here, goes just down here. So perhaps this guy, this larger guy, perhaps also holds a larger scepter in his hand, but what he holds actually has still not been found at present. And beyond these standing persons, the so-called full body setters, there are some other setters also has full body. For example, like this one, this is a site consisting of 3 small setters, and we can see they all have a very long hair, and their hair goes up all the way up, and this is not the end, it's just broken here, and the real size of this figure is almost like this high, and the hair, because the broken hair has been found from pin number 4, the entire hair is almost like this high. So it's a very interesting thing to say. Maybe at that time, some people or some Sanxingdui people really have very long hair as a decoration, and this hair was goes up by using a hairband to support it here. Just like you can see, these bronze has very detailed depiction of the hairband here. And the next type of local style bronze is the so-called mixed style bronzes. They were primarily the Sanxingdui people use different kind of bronze to form a larger bronze statues. It's mixed a Sanxingdui style human figure with a zun, or we say exotic containers on top of the head. For example, like this one. Yeah, this is a piece from page number 3. It's a human with a large bronze container zun on his head. He is holding that with his head. And this is the piece from page number 8, just like what we are doing here to do the extraction of this large animal here. We call it a secret beast, or just a beast. And then we found that these two things can place together. And after the restore work, it looks like this way. So there is a man riding a beast, and upon his head, he is holding a larger vessels just on top of his head. And it's interesting that on top of the head of the beast, there is a small unicorn here, and a standing person, just like this one, just like the giant, grand standing person here, a standing man here. There is a smaller one. This guy standing on top of the beast, on top of the head of the beast here. And we can also see something perhaps related to the religious belief of the Sanxingdui people at that time. We can see a carving of a pattern of sacred tree, a sacred tree decoration on the front of the chest of this large animal, of this beast. So we can see this is the base, the foundation of the tree, or the root of the tree, and this is the branches of them. And if you look at the back of the unicorn horn, and you can see the image of the tree here, and this is the base, this is the root, and you can see the different branches here. And there are even some little small secret here. For example, if you look at detail, you find looks like it's a cave here, and a person just kneeling down within a cave, and he is kneeling, just sitting or kneeling there, below at the foot of the standing man here, at the standing man here, and just here it's very small. And even during the excavation, we didn't notice that. After we extract this large animal out of the page, when we do examination, we found that there is a small depiction of the person at the bottom of this unicorn horn. Yeah, this is the image we just have seen, the human holding a dragon scepter, but it's not single. It also belongs to a mixture. It's not independent. It also belongs to larger mixture bronze scepters. This is the top part of the bronze scepter, so they can place together. It goes up here, and there is another piece, a larger piece. We call it a deity holding also a zun vessel on his top, and just standing with his hand and his body part go up. And why we call this is a deity, not human. So this is the face of the deity, and his hand here, his body part goes up right there, and this is the foot part of it. The foot part comes from another page, from page number 2, that was actually in 1986. So that means we have pieces from different pages that can be placed together. So that's also a clue to show that all these pages were buried at the same time. And finally, we can place all these small fragments together. And this is how it looks like at present. So at the bottom, it's a very large container, bronze container, and the deity just stand with his hand and his body go up there, and this is the bird feet. And he holding a bronze containers on top of his head, and that one, the standing one, stand above the lid of this container and holding a dragon scepter there. The entire height of this sculpture is almost like, at present, is almost like 2.6 meters in height. And we found some new fragments that can be placed again on the top of this one. So this is not in, this setters will not end here. It will goes more again and goes taller again in the future. So perhaps can go up to almost like 3 meters in height. And this is how his hand looks like. We can see the Sanxingdui people have a good, very good technology to depict how the detail of the human body parts. And beside these human-shaped bronzes, we have kind of the bronze pieces in form of animal and plants. The most famous plant-shaped artifacts from Sanxingdui sites is the so-called secret tree from page number 2 in 1986. This tree at present is almost like 4 meters in height, and we can see that the branches can be divided into 3 levels. This is the first level, this is the second level, and this is the third level. So in each level, there are 3 branches, and on each branch, there is one bird and some fruits there. And there is also a dragon who just crawling from the top towards the bottom of the tree. But due to our new discoveries, we think that this is not the actual top. This is not the actual end of the tree, because we can see that it's broken here. And we found even more pieces, even more fragments from several other pages, like page number 3, page number 7, and page number 8. For example, this is the dragon, the body part, upper body part of the dragon here. We have placed them back. And this is another branch of the tree. And this is a leaf of the tree here, just like here. Yeah, you can see this is a leaf. So this is a new found leaf from the page number 8. So that means the real height of the tree can be higher or even bigger than what we have seen in the museum. So we still need to do more restoration work in the future. And according to the excavation in 1986, there were at least 3 secret trees in this page, because the branch of different trees looks very different. So we can tell which branch comes from which tree. For example, that one, these things comes from secret tree number 1, and these are the new branches we found from pin number 8. So they must belongs to pin number belongs to secret tree number 2. It's different from what we have seen on tree number 1. So that means that tree number 2 will also change its appearance in the future. And not only bird and bronze leaves can be seen on the trees, because many different kind of bronze bells have been found within these pages, especially in page number 3, 8, and 7. For example, you can see different types of spells. They all have a small ring on top of them. And sometimes you can see a kind of round hangers to use to hang them on something. So we guess most of them should be hung on the trees, because if you look at the detail of the tree here, yeah, here there is a small ring on the branch of the tree. So these bells should be hung on these trees at ancient time. Just look at the Christmas tree in the West. And beyond the plant form bronze, and we can see these animal form bronzes. Most of the animal represented in Sanxingdui are bird, dragon, snake, and tiger. So these four types of animals will represent most in all these paints. For example, but for bird, they have different kind of bird. You can have chicken or phoenix or some other bird. We cannot name it correctly. And this is a dragon-shaped bronze statues we found from pin number 8. And this is also the largest dragon statues we found from all these paints. It has a foundation here, and this dragon has a head very similar to tiger, and has a body part looks like real dragon, and this dragon just stand like the human in the deity human, just standing with his 4 feet, and then the body part goes up there. And there was 3 small birds stand on this foundation, because this is a triangular foundation. And for example, if you look at detail, look at the eye of the dragon, it has been painted. You can see the eyeball. This is the eyeball of the dragon. It's painted into black. And this is after the cleaning, the preliminary cleaning of these statues after its extraction from the paints. And we found even more body part, especially the tail of it, from pin number 8, just a few months ago. So at present, these statues can goes up to 1.6 meters, like this girl. And we also found other two birds are missing from the foundation. They have been broken before the burial of the pates and thrown to a corner in the pates. And now they have been restored there and here. So that means on this triangular foundation, there are 3 birds. And it's very interesting that this bird looks like a mixture of chicken and duck. The mouth part looks like a duck, but the body part looks like a chicken. So it's very interesting. And we really have some chicken things, maybe not real chicken, but the chicken look bronze statues. This is the very large, almost like life size of the real chicken. If you look at the detail of the surface of it, the decoration of its feathers was not casted by bronze, but painted with ink. For example, look at this picture and this picture. You can see that the feather of the chicken was painted by using brush and ink. So this is a very different technology or artistic style from what we see in Central Plain or in the Middle Yangtze River area. So this perhaps is also a kind of art tradition in Sichuan Basin at this time period. Some of the things we even have very difficult, we even meet difficulties to name them. For example, like this one, it's like a big tube. We just name it a dragon-shaped vessel with a pig snout, because this is not the mouth of this dragon. The real mouth is here. We can see the teeth of it. So this is the snout part, the nose part of this dragon. It looks like a tube, and you can see the fish scale on his head, on its head, and the feather patterns on its body, and also a unicorn and 2 large ears. This mirror has been missing, but the actual function of it is still unknown. Perhaps using as a decoration of some large buildings, we guess. And if you look at the nose, the muscle part, the snout part of this dragon tube, you can see some very interesting decorative patterns. It's a kind of, we call the Yazhang pattern, because this shape can be found from a lot of jade pieces from Sanxingdui and other places in China. We call this kind of ritual piece yazhang. This was not, they do not have practical functions in daily life. They must be used in some ritual activities by holding or some other kind of usage. So people perhaps in Sanxingdui has similar religious belief with the people in other part living in other parts of China at that time because they are using the same or similar religious objects. And they also like to use this kind of patterns to decorate their large bronze pieces. And at the end, we come to the one of the most delicate and complicated bronze pieces we have found from all these pieces. We call it multi-layered altar, but actually we do not know the actual function of it. We just we name it by looking at its shape. We call it an altar. So if you look at detail of the altar, this is the base part of the altar. It has the open work, the basement here, and this above this base is a platform. And on this platform there was 13 small statues in different gestures and postures. So, for example, on the edge of each each edge, there was a small figure just sitting there. And this is the first time we see in Chinese artifacts someone is sitting there. Yeah, because in tradition we think that people in China start to sitting on chairs even after the Han Dynasty, and this is some small figure sitting on a chair there. And for each corner there is a small figure kneeling down and just holding something like the standing human. But what he is holding has been missing. And there are 4 columns. Above each column, there was a bigger one kneeling down there and carrying a barricade. And just above the barricade, it's another platform. And so first we look at the detail. And so this is a seated person here. This is a seated figure. We also think that this doesn't represent a real human. Perhaps it represents a deity, a kind of deity, because if you look at the hair of it, look at the eye of it, especially the teeth, the very sharp tooth in his mouth, perhaps these 4 figures represent 4 deities they believe at that time. And also they have very high level, high rank because they can sit down there. These are the only 4 persons sit down in all these bronze pieces we found from Sanxingdui. And interesting, if we look at it's interesting to look at this one. This is the image. This is the image from the golden scepter. On the golden scepter, the surface of the golden scepter found in 1986. We can see a person with some kind of crown on his head. After the excavation of 1986, people explained the image in this way. They said this is the crown of hair of the person. But after we excavate the new altars, we think should be the hair standing up. So this may be a special hair stair for some kind of deities. And the image, this person on the surface of the golden scepter should be represent this real deities on the bronze altar. And just in the center of this platform, we can see a special person, just one. This one kneeling down and carry a big vessel. This is how it looks like from side. You can see a small person carry a big vessel with just one belt. And this image reminds us some of the person even living in Southwest China today, how they carry large things in this way. So this is the image. This is a picture was taken in 1930s, and even for today, if you go to Southwest China, some minorities still carry large vessels, wooden vessels, by using one belt. So perhaps we can see a very long-term traditions lasting for thousands of years in this area. And this is a person who kneeling on the columns and carrying the barricade. And above the barricade is a platform. This platform, and just on this platform there is a standing small beast. This one is much smaller than what we saw before, and it's interesting that this is not the end of the status. There is a person just here, and we can see someone is kneeling down here, and it looks like this one is riding this, just like that one riding the big beast, and this person is riding this small beast here, and the part above his waist has been broken. But fortunately, we found the missing part in different pit number 3. And this is the top part of this large statues. It was put into another pit. And after the cleaning, it looks like this. This is the top part of the statue. And you can see it's a very complex structure. At the bottom, it's a human holding a plate or holding a platform. And that one, there's another one. This one laid down on this platform, and on his back, he holding 4 columns, or we see four very long vessels, gu vessels. It's kind of drinking vessels, and this made up the top part of the entire altar, bronze altar. So this is the image how the entire bronze altar after the restoration work is also very high and very complicated. And we also know this is not the end. There must be something missing upward there. And during this excavation, our new excavation, we also found, because we have enough technology to preserve the pigment on the surface of these bronzes, we found very interesting that many of these bronzes have been colored. For example, if you look at the detail of the eyeball, the eyebrow, and even the hair, they have been colored into black. And if you look this one, even this one have the eyeliners just around his eye. You can see this one. Yeah, this is the eyeliner, and it's just like the modern decoration. They use black to color the eye lines here. And for the hair part, you can see it also has a very black hair. And sometimes we can see even the white of the eye on the top on the surface of these bronze figures, bronze heads. For example, this is an impression of the bronze on the surface of the bottom soil, on the soil at the bottom of the pits, because they have a long-term contact with the bottom of the soil. And then the white, the color, the pigment of the white has been left on the surface of the soil. So we can see that the color has the eye has a white ball and a white eyeball, and then has a black white ball in eyeball in the center. And we also found that these bronze pieces were not thrown, were not put into the pits just naked. They were wrapped by a lot of fabricates, especially using silk. Because if you look at through the microscope, we found that some of the silk has also been colored. For example, this is a piece of silk fabric found on the surface of the bronze fragments. And you can see these black things. They were not charred, but they were pigment using to paint something on these silks. There are even more bronze pieces. We know they are local style bronze because these things haven't been found beyond the Sichuan Basin, even beyond Sanxingdui site. So they should be local style things, but we don't know the actual function or even how to name them correctly. For example, like the eye-shaped bronze, perhaps they were used for some decoration for large buildings, because we can see small holes just around these things. Perhaps they use something to put it on the wall, on the door, a wooden door or something. And for example, like this one, this is one of the largest bronze from all the pits, and it was from pit number 7, and we call it the turtle back grade. But the actual function of it is still unknown. There are still debate on what the actual function or the religious meaning, because they couldn't be practical tools. It must be some religious items. So what's the meaning of this item? It's unknown. There is a big jade inside this bronze grade. There are very few practical bronze weapons have been found within these pits. Some daggers have been excavated, but we do not think they can be used in the actual war because these weapons are very thin. For example, dagger like here, maybe they can only be used for some ceremonial activities. And finally, we just quickly go through some other kind of artifacts, the gold and jade things. For example, from olive paste, we have a large number of gold pieces, gold artifacts. And for example, this is one of the golden mask we exit from page number 8. But if you look at the original status, when how these things look like in these pages, they were wrapped. They were wrapped and then thrown into the ash layer of the paste. So this is one of the golden mask from page number 8, and this is how it looks like in the original position. So only after you unfolded it, you can have something like this. And there are also a large number of such kind of golden leaf found in different pages, especially from page number 3, 7, and 8. And perhaps these leaves should also be hung on the secret tree as a decoration. You can see the very detailed depiction of the leaf by the ancient craftsmen. And this is after restoration of these golden masks. Some of the masks, just as you see, it should be used to decorate the bronze human head, and some of them can be used to decorate the bronze human mask. And this is we sometimes see the bird-shaped gold ornament because there are very small holes on the surface of it. So people think that this ornament should be put on the surface of some kind of clothes or fabricate as a decoration. And also there are some other kind of golden artifacts. For example, like this one should be used for decorating some bronze containers or the altars, because this kind of feather patterns can be found on the bronze altars or some kind of large bronze containers. And this is the golden scepter found in 1986. Just as I mentioned, it has a special depiction of a set of image here, especially this one. You can see a bird and an arrow just goes through a bird and into a fish head. So this is a very important kind of artistic style, artistic patterns found in Sanxingdui bird and fish. For the jade part, now we have almost like 400, 1,200 all kinds of jade from all the pates. And according to the preliminary test analysis of the jade from page number 8, most of them belongs to nephrite. So that means the Sanxingdui people at that time should have some method to pick up the nephrite out of other precious stones, and they just focus on using these nephrite to make all these ritual vessels. And it's very interesting that during the excavation, during the new excavation, we found a number of such kind of red agate from the pates. And we know that the primary source of red agate in today in China comes from even further southwest in the Yungui Plateau. So perhaps this also could be an evidence to show that the Sanxingdui people have some kind of material connections with the people who are living further southwest. And these jade pieces were not just thrown into the paste randomly. Some of them, or many of them, were stored inside of these containers. For example, in this one, and this one, you can see there are many small jewelry things have been poured out because this lay container just fall down and these things goes out. And also within many of the containers, there are many seashells. Seashells may be used as a kind of currency at that time because seashells was found universally in China at the time. For example, in North China, in northwestern China, in the central plain of China, especially in the capital city of Shang Dynasty, Anyang. And perhaps this can be used as some kind of interregional currency for different groups to exchange, or for some commercial activities. And the Sanxingdui people also looks like they cherish the seashells very much. They stored all these cherries in their big bronze containers. So after almost like to 1050 BC, where did the Sanxingdui people go after that date? So are they missing? Are they disappeared? At present, we know there are some clues show that they were not just directly disappeared. They moved away. After the burial, because we think that the burial of these sacrificial pigs also mark the end of the Sanxingdui site, because it occurred at the end of the Sanxingdui city. And perhaps just after that event, most of the population who used to live on Sanxingdui site moved southward to a new site. We call it the Jinsha. The Jinsha site is located in the center of modern Chengdu, the capital city of Sichuan province. And there are many artifacts. This site had also been excavated around the 2000 and the year 2000. And there was also a large amount of artifacts had been excavated. And many of them show the very strong continuity of cultural traditions, like similar to Sanxingdui culture. For example, they also use a large number of elephant tusk for sacrificial or manufacture activities, and also use a lot of gold to make gold foil and do a lot of make a lot of statues, but much smaller statues, like this standing person holding something. We can see this gesture very familiar because we see a lot in Sanxingdui. And also we can see some kind of this bronze masks was also found in Jinsha site, and the eye-shaped bronze piece. And even for some smaller golden piece, you can see for this one, it's a golden belt, it's a golden band. But on the surface of it, you can see the similar pattern, decorative pattern, just like what we saw on the golden scepter found in Sanxingdui pin number 1. So it's also an arrow goes through a bird and into the head of the fish. So definitely this shows a continuity of the culture of the Sanxingdui people, and maybe also implies that the Sanxingdui people didn't disappear. They just moved. They abandoned the old city, old capital, and moved to another one. But the reason why they moved is still unknown, because there are many different hypotheses have been raised about, for example, like the flood, warfare, or internal conflict. But this question may have been answered in the future, because at present we do not have enough evidence from archaeology side to answer such complicated social questions. So this is my talk today, and the new Sanxingdui Museum has been opened in July, and many of the artifacts we exhibited in the new round of exhibition has been exhibited in the new museum. For example, like the bronze altar, the big beast has already been in the exhibition hall. If you can go to Chengdu sometime, you can visit this site and this museum. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Roland Blood would offer his observation and discussion. And John, take a break.
So I'll get started while they're setting up. It's a great pleasure to be back here at UCLA. And I really wanted to express my admiration for the work that Professor Zhao and his colleagues have been doing in Sanxingdui, and for the really wonderful work that's done here at UCLA in relation to Chinese archaeology and Chinese art history. I wanted to thank Esther for the organizing of this event, and to Yanyi Chang and Yimin for the introductions, and also the Samuel Lee family and Howard for their support of this event. It's been a while since I've been in this auditorium where I used to run slides in the back for talks like this when I was a graduate student. And it's back at that time that I had the great fortune of really getting my first introduction to Sichuan and to Sanxingdui. It was my first trip to the site was in 1999 when I was there on a visit with colleagues and my advisor. And that trip led to a work that I conducted in the Three Gorges first, and ultimately then later in the Sichuan Basin that relates to the Chengdu Plain of the Sichuan Basin that relates to the work that Zhao Hao has been reporting on today. And I wanted to give you a little bit more background on that project to then enable me to say a couple words about the real significance, the real important significance of all of what we've been introduced to today before we open up the floor for questions. So I'll try not to take too long with this comment, but with these comments so that we can have a good discussion before we have our little reception. I wanted to say a few things about the history of the work at Sanxingdui to add on to what Zhao Hao said, because it really is an important site for many reasons. In addition to the fantastic discoveries that have been made in the last several years, the discoveries in 1986 that this work builds on really transformed our understanding of the Chinese Bronze Age because they demonstrated for us that there were places that had previously been entirely unexpected to have these sorts of finds where we knew very little about from received textual traditions and even subsequent now nearly 100 years of scientific archaeology in China, where we had to reevaluate the nature of the origins of Chinese civilization, for lack of a better set of terms. When I first visited in 1999, I was on my way to do work focused on the organization of salt production in the Three Gorges. And I was involved in that project in collaboration with a number of institutions, including Peking University, where Zhao Hao currently works, and I was a visiting student, including people from Sichuan University, the Sichuan Provincial Institute of Archaeology, and the Chengdu City Institute of Archaeology. And I mention those institutions because one of the very important aspects of the work that's being done here is the collaborative nature of this work involving a large number of institutions from across China and from the Sichuan region. I was fortunate to be still working on that salt production project when the discoveries were made at Jinsha in 2001 that we just saw some images of the pit with elephant tusks in it that had been ripped through by a backhoe when they were trying to create the plumbing system for a new apartment complex, leading to a large-scale excavation at that site that allowed us then to further understand where the people at Sanxingdui went afterwards. The subsequent 2 decades of work in and around Chengdu City have really illuminated this post-Sanxingdui phase of human activities within Sichuan. And that work was overseen by the Chengdu City Institute of Archaeology, led by an individual named Wang Yi, who's been a really important figure in Chinese cultural heritage within Sichuan, and has been a particularly important figure, along with Tang Fei, the current director of the Sichuan Provincial Institute, in doing the work that Zhao Hao and colleagues have been participating in. In my own involvement ended up in collaboration with some of these same individuals in this region, being one of the co-directors of a project where we did survey in the Chengdu Plain around one of the Baodun walled sites that we heard about near the beginning of Zhao Hao's talk, a place called Pishengucheng. And that work adds another layer of information to what we are learning from the pits that were discovered at Sanxingdui, because one of the things that one requires in order to understand the big picture is information from multiple scales of analysis. We've heard a tremendous amount today about the very fine detailed analysis of the materials from these pits. And that provides us a tremendous amount of information about the interactions and connections between the people of Sanxingdui during the Bronze Age and other regions, about the ideology and iconography that was important to them and how different it was from other places in China, about technologies associated with many of the artifacts found there. But it only gives us a portion of the picture of the human lives that were involved in the creation of this particular place. And these discoveries have really allowed us to say a lot more about the bigger picture. They're actually a reason why in 2001, when the discoveries were first, 2021, excuse me, when the discoveries were first announced, they became a really important thing in the Chinese media, and there was a great deal of attention focused on these discoveries. And I was asked at the time by a journalist from China who was based here in the United States, why, despite the tremendous attention and tremendous importance of these finds, they didn't receive a lot of attention in the United States media. And in response to that question, I wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post that I just wanted to mention because it made an argument about why that is, and I still stand by that argument. I think it has the coverage of the bias in media in this country in terms of archaeological discoveries has a lot to do with the way in which we, despite our identification as a country that's a melting pot, nevertheless see our historical and cultural origins being primarily associated with certain parts of the world and less associated with other parts of the world. And I think that that's something that we need to, as archaeologists and historians and scholars, need to push back against. But it also was a framework in which I was able to identify the period that we're in now as a period of what we call a golden age in Chinese archaeology. This is an overused phrase that's been used multiple times over the past many decades. But I actually think it's really true now. And the work that Zhao Hao and colleagues have done at Sanxingdui illustrate one of the main reasons why this is a particularly important transformative period in the development of this field. The analytical work and the care that's been attended to in the context of the excavations, which you've got a taste of by looking at the methodologies that they've been using, is a really great illustration of how sophisticated archaeological work is currently in China, and how that sophisticated work allows us to examine all sorts of new questions. I wanted to mention three kind of big questions that I think these data particularly relate to. One has to do with where we started off and ended up in terms of Zhao Hao's talks, and that is the constantly asked question of where did these people come from and where did they go? Because when too much attention is placed on the fantastic finds within the pits, they seem to be completely out of context, almost alien. In fact, aliens have often been used to explain them by those who are not terribly serious about answering these questions. And that's because they seem to be so unprecedented in terms of both their position within Sichuan, but also more importantly, within the Chinese Bronze Age broadly. The use of gold is not something you see in other places. The use of anthropomorphic figurines and their creation in bronze is not something you see in other places. The creation of these sorts of pits filled with this type of material, but also carefully laid down in a way that doesn't seem to be a destruction event, is not something that we see in other places. And but when we start to drill into the information carefully, we understand the connections of the Sanxingdui community to those that came before, people who lived at places like Pichengguchang, this walled site from the Baodun period, where we did our survey work around, and the Baodun site itself. We also see connections to the period that succeeds after the Sanxingdui site, particularly the remains at Jinsha. And we can then understand the trajectory of change that occurred within the Chengdu Plain, within the Sichuan Basin more clearly. And that brings me to kind of my first main point that this speaks to, and that is how important it has become for us to understand the various different trajectories of social and cultural development that have occurred in China over the millennia. That helps us then turn our attention to a broader set of historical phenomenon than those that are described in the received historical tradition from China, and the conversation that focuses all interpretations of the origins of Chinese civilization ultimately on the Central Plains. Instead, when we start to see discoveries like this, we understand that there are really interesting local trajectories, and these reinforce the very multilinear nature of the emergence of civilization, for lack of a better term, in China broadly. These discoveries force us to confront the fact that the history of China, the antiquity of China, is not monolithic, is not a single story, and is very multifaceted. And this is a particularly excellent example of one of the particular lines of social development that occurred. There are endless questions that the specific details of Zhao Hao's talk beg of us. And one set of those questions relates to the connections between places, the ways in which raw materials were acquired from different places, how those were brought together within a society that coalesced at the site of Sanxingdui, and how those different elements of the material culture there reflect a whole series of different social phenomena in the past. I'll draw attention to several examples. One is the silk that was only mentioned in passing by Zhao Hao today, but it's something that's really a fantastic set of discoveries. Silk obviously doesn't preserve very well in most archaeological contexts, and yet here, because of the work that's been, the careful work that's been done, we now have evidence for silk manufacture, probably within the Sichuan basin. And this might have been an important resource that allowed the people who were living at Sanxingdui and surrounding areas to connect to other regions. We also know that jade was very important at the site. We see the attention given to it in that fantastic but bizarre bronze gridded object that surrounds a piece of jade. There are jade sources not too far away from Sanxingdui in the upper Minjiang River. And that is something that I think was also really important to both the economy and also the broader set of connections that occurred at Sanxingdui in the past, as was the ivory, which is so dominant in many of these pits. We have now over 1,000 tusks, right?
Over 800.
Almost 1,000, 800 tusks at Sanxingdui in their total quantity, and that's a tremendous amount of tusks of elephants. And important fact I often like to repeat is that Asian elephants are a species in which only the male elephants have tusks, and male elephants are territorial. This suggests that the geographical range from which this material was being acquired is quite broad, and it also reflects that this place was probably a place where people came together from a lot of different places, bringing with them things like tusks as part of the way in which they performed the city in which they were living, or at least interacting. And that brings me to the last point, which is Li Min pointed out that this place is so, in a conversation we were having earlier, that this place is so interesting and the discovery is so unique that sometimes it's very difficult to find a place to start a conversation about how we understand it. I think one of the ways that we can create a frame of reference for thinking about Sanxingdui is through the notion of urbanism and how this place was or was not urban in certain meaningful ways. There's been a considerable amount of literature spilt about what it means to be a city and what cities are. And I'm not particularly myself interested in questions that ask whether or not a place was a city, but rather the ways in which places are urbanized and urban in meaningful senses. And I think there are actually 4 components to what urbanism involves. One is centrality and how certain places are central within a particular region. Another is the differentiation that urban places take on in terms of their relationship with the role around them, and in terms of the differentiation of social roles within a particular site. Another has to do with the scale. Like, cities tend to be big, but they're big in different ways. Some are dense, some are very populous, some are geographically broad. And a last one has to do with the process of making places central to people's lives and the kind of the creation of urban places through performance and ceremonies. And that's a way in which Sanxingdui in particular played a really important role. We can tell from the finds at on these pits in the broader geographical region around them. I've already spoken too long, even though I said I wouldn't speak very long. And so I'm going to turn it over to Li Min to say a few things.
Now it's the Q&A time. So I will deliver my. Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Zhao, for the presentation. I have two questions. First one pertains to the lack of evidence of the writing system associated with this culture, and also the lack of human remains like bones on the site, given the fact that there have been cities built around the area. So this is the first question. And the second question pertains to, it seems that there's a lack of female representation in the artifacts. And given the fact that the first Chinese society formation is a matriarchal society, and if we look at the days, we're talking about 4,000 years ago. So I will assume that at that time, the matriarchal society was still, at least in some form. So what's the reason that there was no female representation in terms of the artifacts found in association with this culture?
So I can start with first. I answer the first question. Yeah. That's really we haven't found any evidence for the either inscription or writing system on the artifacts. Perhaps we think that because, for example, this I use one of the image on the oracle inscription found in Anya. They mentioned the existence of state for the southwest. So they definitely should have some name or state. But we guess that perhaps the people living in Sanxingdui in the Sichuan Basin, according to my understanding, I think they should have some writing system, because if they are having with such complicated religious belief and complicated political and social structure, if we want to have a better control of this state, they couldn't do this without a writing system. Perhaps because they're writing things on such on different kind of materials, especially organic materials. Why I just mentioned you remember the chicken, the chicken brown there? We can know that they use some kind of brush and ink. So that means they can have very fine painting of ink painting on browns. If they can have such things on browns, they also have we also have evidence. I show you at the end of the presentation. They can have also painting on the silk fabrics. So that means perhaps they have abilities to write things on the organic materials like silk, bamboo. Maybe they do not like to write, just like Central Plan people, to make on the original or browns. So the media for the writing system can be different. So at the end, we are cannot found in this appeal site. So perhaps this is kind of explanation. We expect that in the future we can find more organic materials from Sanxingdui and say if there are really they really has or have no writing system. But to my personal understanding, I think they should have something like writing system, or they cannot do such a complicated society. And for the second question, because they all wearing masks, so it's hard to tell if some of the figures are really human, not really female or male. Because when you see all these images, most of these images, most of these statues are human from human past. They are wearing a mask, so it's hard to say they are female or male. There is only one example I show you here.
Yes, after the extraction of this site of, let me turn this off. Oh, sorry, it's middle, in front. Okay, after the extraction of this side of figures out of the pits,
some scholars said these two figures represent male and this one represents female, because if you look at the facial expression, this figure is much rounded. So some people said this maybe represent the female, but it's difficult to know the actual gender of them, because it's just there must be some kind of extraction in these figures. And for these human heads we found from all these pits, there has been two figures with no mask. There has been two. I didn't give you the image here. I think most of the figures here wearing masks, so it's hard to tell their gender. There are only two. I remember two human heads. One from pit number 2, one from pit number 8, wearing no mask. They have very round and soft face. And some people also say that these two, at least these two, have represent female. So what's the actual social status of female in Sanxingdui society? I think it's very difficult to tell from these human status. So because these have very artistic exaggeration. And for the human remains, we really do not have found any tomb, either the higher tomb or lower tomb from Sanxingdui side. Perhaps because they have different kind of tradition for burial. For example, if we burn the dead, or they just throw the body into the river, because to the north it's a big river just goes through the north part of the city. And if they have different kind of funeral tradition, perhaps they will let no human remains. But for Baozun culture, the archaeological culture earlier than Sanxingdui really have a lot of tombs. And even in Jinsha, the archaeological culture later than Sanxingdui, we also have found a lot of tombs. So it's really weird why we haven't found enough tombs, or even one tomb belongs to Sanxingdui culture. Another important maybe problem with our archaeological work within Sanxingdui site is that during the last 90 years, we all focused on some kind of sacrificial area and the palatial area. Because we have limited personnel, so archaeologists have to focus on one thing or two. So because Sanxingdui site is very large, I didn't mention that the entire city of like 4 kilometers from east to west. This is just within the city. Even beyond city border, there are still many extents. So if these dead people were buried outside of the city, we haven't done enough work there. So perhaps this due to your question, maybe due to our unbalanced work. So maybe we guess in the future we can have some human remains, because within these within one of the pits we have enough. We have found a lot of animal bones, charred animal bones. So even the soil could be a little bit acid. They cannot be completely absorbed by the soil. So we guess if there are adult skeletons in the tomb really buried underneath, we can find in the future. So the current situation perhaps is an unbalanced work. Yeah.
Professor Mike.
Thank you.
She's our new faculty in middle period Chinese literature.
Thank you.
Also good chance to introduce to the audience here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Li, and thank you, Professor Zhao Hao, for such a wonderful talk. I learned so much today. As Professor Li mentioned, I work mainly on textual tradition. So for me, it's like an entire universe out there. It's really, really eye-opening. Thank you so much for your generosity in sharing this wealth of knowledge with me. It must be one of the best talks I have been this year. So thank you so much. My question is about sizes. So I'm really intrigued in how the problem of size seems to be pretty central in these burial pits. And particularly, I'm very intrigued by one of the images that you showed us.